Security Breach RUIN is out, and I've played it more than the actual base game, I'm pretty sure at this point. Mainly because it's really good and you should play it, but also I've been trying my hardest to understand it. There are a lot of new threads to follow up on. Questions like, who is Cassie and her father? Which you can see right here. Was Gregory ever even at the Pizzaplex? But one of the questions that's been bothering a lot of us, what do the endings mean? Do they tell us anything we don't know about Ruin or possibly Security Breach itself? Or maybe, do they tell us about the next game Steelwolf's going to make? That's what we're here to answer today. So slices, put on your aprons, and let's bake ourselves a theory. For anyone not in the know, there are 3 possible endings for Security Breach Ruin. There's a 4th one in the files that was coded, but there's no information, so it was most likely scrapped. The 3 endings we do have stem off of the same final chase sequence. So what is that sequence? Well, Cassie gets down to the old elevator under Roxy Raceway and makes it down to the FNAF 6 location, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza Place. But the usual tunnel was caved in, revealing instead the giant statue down there has been disturbed by something tunneling out. Going through that tunnel, we approach the FNAF 6 pizzeria instead from the back, passing through this giant cave, some storerooms, Candy Cadet, even the rooms that Burntrap was in during the Security Breach boss fight. Deeper still, and we reach a room much lower than the rest of the pizza place, but still seemingly visually a part of it. In here, we find a forklift, the machine controlling Mexus, and the console used to control the machine. We shut off the Mexus console, trapping the rabbit that was chasing us inside of it, and opening the door forward, only to reveal that it's been poured over by concrete. We use the forklift to bust through, and we reveal it. The endoskeleton that tricked us down here in the first place, the Mimic. It's been copying Gregory's voice through a walkie-talkie to lure us into freeing it. Once we do, it tries to kill us. Talk about ungrateful. But for some unexplained reason, a very strange and unexplained reason, Roxy is apparently okay and comes in to save the day, buying us some time. Once we get away a little bit, the real Gregory, or so he says, comes over on the walkie-talkie to tell us that we were never supposed to be down here in the first place. He then says his friend has the building maps and can lead us out of here, we just have to listen to their instructions. This is where the deviations for the different endings begin to occur. So let's start off by explaining the one the files label as the neutral ending. If you run away from the Mimic, follow Gregory's instructions to a T, you eventually end up using your Faz wrench to open this elevator door. The Mimic gets caught in the door, losing its arm, but ultimately we get away. In the elevator ride, Gregory attempts to give us some more answers. Not only were we not supposed to go to the Pizzaplex, but he's not even at the Pizzaplex himself. He doesn't know what the Mimic is. Maybe he should read the books. But he does know that it's been trapped here for a really long time. The Mexus machine we just shut off was a device built to conceal the Mimic. Then a bit of feedback goes through. He then explains that this isn't our fault and he knows that we did it for him, but he can't risk them being followed. And our elevator drops, somehow not killing Cassie, as Roxy calls out our name confused after the credits. This ending seems straightforward on the surface, but there's actually a bit of a debate going on, one that I'm here to settle. Some people think that this is exactly as it seems. Gregory, although he doesn't want to, ultimately stops the elevator to make sure the Mimic doesn't get out, killing Cassie in the process. The other camp think that at some point the Mimic retakes over communication, and Gregory never actually is the one that cuts the elevator, and I'm here with evidence to show which side is right. Straight away, at some point I do think Gregory is talking to us in this ending. Notably, for most of this sequence, I agree with the files. In the game, anytime the Mimic is talking to us pretending to be Gregory, the file name reads Grimmick. Yes, the Grimmick Shake is canon in FNAF now, but there are other lines labeled in the game as Gregory. Notably, every line we get from Gregory after listening to the walkie-talkie after encountering the Mimic. Now I know this might seem like case closed for the Gregory is guilty side of the argument. Reminder that they learned this firsthand in the very previous game Security Breach, where we found out the sprite in Princess Quest was named Cassidy. They immediately changed it in the next update, but not only did they then learn that file names can spoil things for the future because of the fanbase file scraping, but they knew to change it so that we wouldn't spoil things for ourselves in the future. Which means some or all of the lines labeled Gregory could still be the Mimic, they just don't want to give it away yet. So if that's the case, is it all the Mimic, or do we go back at some point? Well, I'm not even close to the first person to point this out, but I think the feedback on the elevator is no accident. Right as that feedback goes through, the tone in Gregory's voice and dialogue shifts. He goes from giving us answers answers to apologizing and then sending us down. I and many others think that that feedback is when the mimic regains control of communication. The text box even resets at that moment. But if you're not convinced by just the dialogue, this might do it. Method. How could Gregory, someone who said he's not even at the Pizzaplex, drop the elevator on us? An old elevator that doesn't look like it's even connected to anything else. He would need to have some sort of ultra system controlling every single aspect of the Pizzaplex at like his bedroom or something. It's possible, but it's unlikely. But you know what is a very likely method? This elevator is powered by a battery pack right underneath the conduit that we charged. And you know who just got foiled and let Cassie get away and is sitting right next to that battery pack? The mimic. All it would have to do is just unclip one of the two clips and the elevator would come crashing back down. So not only is it far more likely character-wise for the mimic to trick and try to kill Cassie again, but it's easier for the mimic to do it than it would be for Gregory to do it. I think it's solidly in the camp that the mimic is the one that drops the elevator. The final bit about this ending that I do want to mention is Roxy's little bonus dialogue at the end of the credits, when she says, "Cassie?" This implies that Cassie's alive, and if she survived that massive elevator fall, I don't want to say it, but we should consider the possibility that Cassie isn't human. I'm just saying, that was a big fall. If she survived that, she is sturdy. But that in total, according to the files, is the neutral ending of Security Breach Ruin. Now on to, honestly, what might be the most confusing out of the three, the Scooper ending. This is by far the hardest ending to get, as it's the only one that requires any prerequisites, not to mention that the prerequisites are hard to find. Throughout the game you have these camera stations, but 4 specific camera stations, one being the very first one you encounter, one in the Monty Catwalks, one in the Roxy Salon, and one in Bonnie Bowling, you can zoom out further than you normally can, and on the very edge of the map is a secret camera. On each of these, when you open a secret camera, it shows a doorway and a door opening in that doorway. Yep. Bye-bye. If you've done all this correctly and get back to the ending, you'll find that things are slightly different now. The mimic has changed. It's put on this amalgamation costume made out of a lion, an elephant, and a bird. The next scene plays out as normal, but at the end of the chase sequence, the elevator access is blocked off, and instead you go down the 4 doors that you opened. Suddenly, you're in a bit of a higher tech room. You go behind a door that closes and locks, and then you're just looking through glass with a button on a podium. You press the button, the room fills up with some kind of fog, the mimic shows up, and then the Scooper kills it, apparently. Some kind of fight happens in the fog, you can't even see it, trust me, I've gone out of bounds, but at the end of it, the mimic is on the ground and the Scooper hides away. Now it is worth noting that this is just the mimic's costume. In the model that chases you, you can see bits of the mimic sticking out through the mouth, the stomach, and things like that. But I went out of bounds and I looked at this model. That endoskeleton is gone, which does track with what the Scooper is intended to do. But in this ending, the mimic escapes somewhere. I still hold strong that I'm not 100% sure what this ending is supposed to mean, but I do have a pretty solid idea, and it's all based on location. I've stated before in several different theories where I think the locations of several important places in the franchise are. Namely, I think the sister location Bunker and Fredbear's Family Diner are fairly close together, mainly because of the Funtime Freddy Fuse map. This one sister location minigame has so much lore potential throughout the entire franchise. One of the most important things to note about it is the connections the map makes. Based off of the layouts of these 2 buildings, we can assume that this is the FNAF 4 house and that this is Fredbear's Family Diner. So if there's connected power between the sister location Bunker, the FNAF 4 house, and Fredbear's Family Diner, we can assume they're all relatively nearby one another. Now, most people do believe the sister location Bunker is directly, if not very close to underneath the FNAF 4 house. That makes a lot of sense. But Fredbear's Family Diner being nearby is very important. Why? Well, it's widely believed, and I believe it too, that the FNAF 6 fake pizzeria was built on top of or within Fredbear's Family Diner. It would explain the remote location, how Henry had access to it, and the rather bare bones internal layout. Do you see where I'm headed with this? I think that this lot started as Fredbear's Family Diner, then was converted to the fake pizzeria for FNAF 6, and then was later bulldozed over and turned into the Mega Pizzaplex. So, what does all this have to do with the ending? Well, I don't think the allusion to sister location in this ending is an accident. I mean, the game's ending sequence is literally listening to somebody give you instructions on whether to go left or right. You can either listen to those instructions and get to an ending that either involves a scooper or an elevator, or you can disobey those instructions and get a questionably canon secret ending. Oh, wait, sorry. I just described word for word the ending to Sister Location. We were talking about Ruin. Wait a minute, it's the same description. So if this is so connected already, and the Sister Location bunker and Fredbear's Family Diner were connected by power, who's to say that this room isn't the actual original scooping room? Alright, I hear you. The design of the scooper is completely different, and the room has been changed too. But I do have two explanations for that. First, if this tunnel had been known to Vanny or Glitchtrap, they could have been working on the scooper and making their own modifications to it, as this does look a lot more effective than the original model. But it could be as simple as the second option. Steelwool has already shown that they're willing to do character redesigns if it's cool or fits the narrative. Case in point, Roxy. Her design is completely different from when we see her, and it's not a matter of being more damaged. That is a different endoskeleton, but it's fine because it serves a purpose in this game. The scooper could be the same way, where they've redesigned the scooper, but it's still meant to be the same one. That could be this. Regardless, the button shape and layout, the scooping room layout, the window layout, and the proximity of these buildings really has me believing that this room is the original Sister Location scooping room. And if so, what does that tell us? No, really, what does that tell us? That wasn't rhetorical. I have no idea what's going on here. Like, I have all this context and I think I know the meaning behind it, but as far as what it's trying to say for the story, I have no clue. Maybe I'll find out one day. Go watch some Let's Plays or something in the meantime. Like the highly edited content over on the Rytoost YouTube channel. Thank you again so much for the amazing support on the channel so far, and I cannot wait to bring you more content highly edited by Queen Coda. It's gonna be great. Finally, that middle ending. The secret ending that's easy to get. What the files label as the Brazil ending. All you have to do to get this ending is disobey Gregory in a specific moment. The third time he says go right, instead you go left, and you find a Fredbear cutout holding 2 ice cream cones. If you put your mask on in this moment, you're transported to a recreation of the Good Vanny ending, the Princess Quest ending, with Gregory saying that he found a place to hide, Cassie breathing panickedly, and the game fades to black. This is admittedly very confusing, but I think we know what this means. And it even tells us a bit about the next game after Help Wanted 2. So folks, bake with me for a moment. I think that this ending is fake. Okay, so like it actually happens in the game, but within the game's continuity, it's fake. Okay, let me put it this way. What Cassie is seeing here isn't real in any way. This is her losing to the Vanny mask, and to the Mimic by extension. Our protagonist is no longer Cassie. This is Cassidy, a newer, more sinister character to use that name. Note, I'm not saying she literally turns into Cassidy here. I'm just saying she changes her name like Vanny to Vanessa, Cassie to Cassidy. Okay, just bear with me. Bear with me. There is a bear with me. Our first hint of the fakeness is the dialogue that we hear. This Gregory voice line is the exact same one we hear the Mimic use in the Roxy Salon.
That was people, I remember in the trailer.
I'm okay. I found a spot to hide.
So we know that isn't Gregory. Our second hint is that this isn't the Good Vanny ending. Like, we have a Freddy character, a Gregory, and a Vanessa on a hill eating ice cream, sure, but it's not the same. In the original, they're all sitting side by side. Gregory is eating a popsicle, there's a Freddy head, and Vanessa's eating an ice cream cone. And Gregory and Helpy, not Freddy's head, are facing us holding ice cream cones. Gregory and Helpy, the exact same 2 fake people who led us down here in the first place. Once again, they're leading us astray. But for what? Why is this happening? The game tells us that too, but first, a little context. For those who haven't read the books, in Tales number 5, the story GGY tells us a lot about our boy Gregory. Assuming this book, or the majority of it, is to be in the game's timeline, which I do, before the events of Security Breach, Gregory was a mind-controlled slave to the Mimic, just like Vanessa was. His name, GGY. as Vanessa's was Vanny. If we take that idea from the books and pair it with the fact that in the games, we don't see Gregory return to a home after Security Breach, and we know there is a child-sized hidden alcove in the daycare, just like Vanny's hidden alcove in the Phaser Blast, I think it's safe to assume that this secret hideout is where GGY was living. Finally, and I'm not the only person to make these connections, FNAF has a whole video on Gregory and how he's been trapped, I think it's incredibly likely that the Balloon World machine is what trapped Gregory's mind within GGY, just like the Princess Quest machine trapped Vanessa within Vanny. Or rather, those machines were the key to freeing them. Okay, so why does that matter? Well, look at the two other things that were added to this ending: balloons and the daycare theme. Cassie, just like Gregory, has been taken by the Mimic. Cassie might very well be our next antagonist, if this ending is the canon one. Still don't believe me? Then take it from Steel Wool themselves. The ending is labeled in the files as the Brazil ending. At first this seems quite random, but a bunch of folks on Twitter found a movie from 1985 titled Brazil. Let me read you the ending paragraph on Wikipedia. Sam is restrained in a chair in a large empty cylindrical room to be tortured by his old friend Jack Lint. As Jack is about to start the torture, Tuttle and other members of the Resistance break into the Ministry, shooting Jack, rescuing Sam, and blowing up the Ministry building. Sam and Tuttle flee together. A whole escape sequence plays. At the end, Jack is surprised to find himself in a truck driven by Jill. The two leave the city together. However, this happy ending is a delusion. It is revealed that Sam is still strapped to the torture chair. Does it all click now? This ending is the mental prison that Cassie gets put in to turn into the next Vanny. And I think it tells us the next game Steel Wool is going to make after Help Wanted 2. For those who don't know, there are a lot of prototype maps that were left in the files for Ruin, things that never made the cut. One of them is mostly nonsense, except for the fact that there's a big sign on it that says, quote, something cool that maybe foreshadows Carnival. Carnival? To me, Carnival sounds like a project name for an upcoming game that they have not yet publicly announced. But that word Carnival, doesn't it invoke Balloon World? Or even the Balloon Circus animatronics that keep popping up again and again in merchandise? Not only that, but look at two of the costumes the Mimic uses in this basement. A lion and an elephant, two of the most prolific circus animals. I believe in the works at Steel Wool right now is a game where we play as Cassie trapped in this cage and try to break out. We see this hill shot with balloons and music in the background, and we pan down to see Fredbear's Singin' Show, the very carnival that Security Breach introduced into the canon, and that is why a Fredbear cutout gets us this ending. So does that mean the Brazil ending is canon? Dude, I don't know. But if you want to know more about Ruin and the other lore the game presents, you can go ahead and watch that video there. For now, a huge shout out to the best channel members, the Dough Risers, and until next time, as always, stay toasty slices.